The night should have been simple. Our company was celebrating another successful year, and everyone seemed determined to enjoy it. Music filled the ballroom. Glasses clinked together. People laughed over stories from old projects. I should have been thinking about the client presentation waiting for me the next morning. Instead, I kept watching Chloe. She caught me looking and smiled. "What?" she asked. "Nothing." She laughed. "You've been staring at me all night. I've barely seen you all evening. I'm talking to people." I glanced toward Ryan Carter, who was already standing beside her again. "You've spent more time with Ryan than me." She rolled her eyes. "Ethan, don't start." "I'm not starting anything." "Then stop looking so serious." Ryan lifted his glass. "Come on, man. Relax." I forced a smile. "I'm relaxed." Chloe nudged Ryan playfully. "See? I told you he's always like this." Daniel walked over carrying 2 drinks. "Mind if I steal Ethan for a minute?" Chloe waved us away. "Go ahead." Daniel handed me a soda. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "No, you're pretending. I don't want to ruin her night." He looked toward Chloe. Ryan was making her laugh again. Daniel sighed. "I've been watching them. They're just talking." "You don't believe that." "I don't know what to believe." He lowered his voice. "Chloe likes attention. Everyone likes attention. Not like this." I stayed quiet. He continued. "She enjoys knowing other guys admire her. She wouldn't cross a line." "I hope you're right." I looked across the room. Ryan leaned closer. Chloe laughed again. Something inside me felt uncomfortable, but I pushed it away. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe Daniel was. A few minutes later, Chloe returned. "Why are you hiding over here?" "I'm talking to Daniel." She smiled. "You worry too much. I have an early meeting. So, I should leave soon." Her expression barely changed. "Already? I told you about the presentation." "Oh." She shrugged. "I forgot." Ryan appeared beside us again. "Leaving?" "I have work." He grinned. "That's why nobody invites accountants to parties." I smiled politely. "I'm not an accountant." "Close enough." Chloe laughed. "See? Ryan always says the funniest things." Daniel looked at me, but didn't speak. I checked my watch. Almost 10. I should go. Chloe leaned forward and kissed my cheek. "Drive safely." "That's it." She blinked. "What?" "I'll see you tomorrow." "Of course." Ryan lifted another drink. "We'll keep the party alive." I nodded once. "Have fun." As I walked toward the exit, something made me stop. I turned around. Ryan was already handing Chloe another drink. She accepted it without hesitation. He whispered something. She laughed so hard she nearly spilled it. I stood there for a few seconds. Daniel noticed me. He walked over. "Still here?" "I don't know why this feels wrong." He looked across the room. "I've had that feeling all night." "You think I'm jealous." "I think you're ignoring your instincts." I let out a slow breath. "I'm probably imagining things." "Maybe. But maybe not." I looked at Chloe one last time. She never looked back. I walked outside. The cold night air hit my face. My car was parked across the street. While driving home, I kept replaying the evening. Ryan making her laugh. Her forgetting my meeting. The way she barely noticed I was leaving. I turned on the radio to distract myself. It didn't help. 25 minutes later, I reached my apartment. I loosened my tie and dropped my keys onto the kitchen counter. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. For a moment, I almost ignored it. Instead, I opened the message. One photo. Nothing else. I frowned. Then I tapped the image. The room suddenly felt silent. Ryan's hand rested against Chloe's face. His lips were pressed against hers. She wasn't pushing him away. She wasn't surprised. She was kissing him back. My hands became cold. I stared at the screen, hoping I had misunderstood. I zoomed in. There was no mistake. No misunderstanding. No excuse. The woman I loved was standing in the middle of the party, kissing another man while believing I had already gone home. The photograph stayed on my phone long after I stopped looking at it. I sat on my couch without moving. My heartbeat felt strangely slow. I expected anger. Instead, I felt empty. My phone rang. "Daniel." I answered. "Ethan." "Yeah. You sound strange." "I just got a message." "What kind of message?" "I'll send it." A few seconds later, he called again. "Where are you?" "Home." "Don't move." "I'm not planning to. I'm coming over." He hung up before I could answer. I looked at the photograph one more time. Ryan's hand rested against Chloe's face. She wasn't resisting. She looked completely willing. 5 years together. One picture. That was all it took. 20 minutes later, someone knocked on my apartment door. Daniel walked inside without waiting. He looked at me, then at my phone. I hoped it was fake. So did I. He sat across from me. What are you going to do? I don't know. Go back. Why? To confront them. I slowly shook my head. What would that change? You deserve answers. I already have one. I held up the phone. Daniel sighed. Maybe there's an explanation. I looked at him. If you believe that, you wouldn't be here. He stayed quiet. I unlocked my phone. Chloe had sent 3 messages. Where are you? Did you get home? Why aren't you answering? Daniel frowned. She acts like nothing happened. She doesn't know. Not yet. I opened our conversation. My fingers rested above the keyboard. Daniel watched silently. You really aren't going back? No. What are you writing? I took a slow breath. Then I typed. You don't have to explain. Tomorrow I'll bring your things. I read it once. No anger. No insults. No questions. Just the truth. I pressed send. The message changed from delivered to read almost immediately. Daniel looked at the screen. She saw it. My phone started ringing less than 5 seconds later. Chloe. I didn't answer. She called again. Then again. Daniel looked surprised. She's panicking. I placed the phone face down. I'm done. 10 minutes passed. The calls never stopped. Then Daniel's phone vibrated. He looked down. It's Mark. He was at the party. Answer. Daniel put the call on speaker. Mark. Dude, what happened? What do you mean? Chloe just slapped Ryan so hard, everyone heard it. Daniel looked at me. What? Mark continued. She shoved him away after checking her phone. I closed my eyes. Then what? She started crying. Ryan kept asking what was wrong. And she screamed at him. Daniel asked quietly. What did she say? Mark answered. She yelled, Don't touch me. I said nothing. Mark kept talking. Ryan looked completely confused. He said they were just kissing. Daniel glanced at me again. What happened after that? She grabbed her purse. Then she ran outside. Daniel thanked him before ending the call. The apartment became silent again. Finally he spoke. She chose you. I shook my head. No. What? She chose the consequences. He stared at me. That's different. It is. My phone rang again. Chloe. Daniel asked. Still not answering? No. The ringing stopped. Then another message arrived. Please answer. Another. It isn't what you think. Another. Please let me explain. I locked the phone without reading anything else. Daniel leaned back. I've never seen you this calm. I'm not calm. You look calm. That's because something ended. He nodded slowly. I think you're right. An hour later, he finally left. Before walking out, he stopped at the door. If you need anything, I know. Call me. I will. The apartment became quiet again. Outside, rain started falling. I made coffee even though it was almost midnight. I never drank it. Someone knocked. Softly at first. Then harder. Ethan. Chloe. I recognized her voice immediately. Please. I didn't move. I know you're inside. She knocked again. I'm sorry. I closed my eyes. I made a mistake. Silence. Then another knock. Please open the door. I stayed where I was. You don't even have to forgive me. Her voice cracked. Just talk to me. I looked toward the door. 5 years together. Thousands of conversations. Tonight, I had nothing left to say. She slid down against the other side of the door. I could hear her crying. Minutes passed. Then another hour. Every so often she knocked again. Ethan. No answer. I love you. No answer. It didn't mean anything. Still nothing. Around 3 in the morning her voice became quiet. I'll wait. I believed her. She stayed outside until sunrise. When I finally looked through the peephole, she was sitting on the floor with red eyes, hugging her knees. For a second my heart wanted to open the door. Then I remembered the photograph. Ryan's hand. Her kiss. The choice she had already made before my message ever arrived. I stepped away from the door. For 5 years, every argument had ended the same way. I chased. She waited. I apologized. She decided when everything was okay again. That morning, for the first time since we started dating, I stopped chasing. Morning arrived without bringing any peace. I barely slept. The coffee on my table had turned cold hours ago. When I opened my apartment door, Chloe was still sitting outside. Her makeup had faded. Her eyes were swollen. The moment she saw me, she stood so quickly she almost lost her balance. Ethan. I looked at her quietly. You stayed all night. I couldn't leave. I nodded once. What do you want? Please let me explain. I stepped aside. 5 minutes. She entered slowly. The apartment felt unfamiliar with both of us inside. She looked around before facing me. It meant nothing. I didn't answer. She rushed forward. The kiss only lasted a few seconds. Silence. Ryan surprised me. Still nothing. I drank too much. I folded my arms. Are you finished? Her voice became desperate. Ethan, please. I unlocked my phone. I want you to see something. She looked confused. I opened the photograph and handed her my phone. The color drained from her face. She stared at the screen without speaking. You said he surprised you. You said it lasted only seconds. Ethan. I pointed at the image. Look at it. Her hands started shaking. You're kissing him back. Tears filled her eyes. I wasn't thinking. No. I shook my head. You weren't. She tried to hand me the phone. I didn't take it. Tell me the truth. I am. No. I looked directly into her eyes. Tell me the truth for the first time. She broke down. I liked the attention. The words hung in the room. I stayed silent. She continued. Ryan always complimented me. I waited. He noticed my clothes. Another pause. My hair. She lowered her head. He made me feel attractive. I asked quietly. And I didn't. You did. Then why? She cried harder. You became busy. I was working. I know. I was building our future. I know. But sometimes. She wiped her face. I felt invisible. I stared at her. So instead of telling me. She nodded. You enjoyed another man's attention. She whispered. Yes. Before I could answer, someone knocked. I opened the door. Sophia stood outside. She looked between us. I came as soon as Chloe called. She stepped inside. What happened? Neither of us answered. Sophia looked at Chloe. Tell me. Chloe covered her face. I kissed Ryan. Sophia froze. You what? I made a mistake. Sophia looked at me. Is that true? I quietly handed her my phone. She looked at the picture. Her eyes widened. Oh my God. The room stayed silent. Finally, Sophia lowered the phone. Chloe. I'm sorry. No. Sophia shook her head. Don't apologize to me. She pointed toward me. Apologize to him. I have. You haven't. Chloe frowned. What? You've only defended yourself. Tears rolled down Chloe's face again. It didn't mean anything. Sophia sighed deeply. You're wrong. She stepped closer. Betrayal never begins with the first kiss. Chloe looked confused. It begins much earlier. Silence. It begins with hiding conversations. Another pause. Seeking attention. Sophia's voice became firmer. Crossing little lines because you think they don't matter. Chloe couldn't answer. Sophia continued. The kiss wasn't the beginning. It was the result. The apartment became completely quiet. Another knock interrupted us. Daniel walked in carrying several empty boxes. He looked at Chloe. You ready? She looked at me. What's happening? I answered calmly. I'm packing your things. Her eyes widened. No. Yes. You can't mean that. I do. She grabbed my arm. Ethan, please. I gently moved her hand away. Daniel quietly opened the first box. Neither of us spoke while he folded clothes into it. Chloe watched in disbelief. You're really doing this? Yes. We've been together 5 years. I know. You can't throw that away. I looked at her. I'm not the one who did. She started crying again. I'll never talk to Ryan. I believe you. I'll block him. I believe you. I'll do anything. I nodded slowly. I believe that too. Hope briefly appeared on her face. Then why? I looked at the photograph still resting on the table. Because trust doesn't disappear because of one picture. She stared at me. What? The picture didn't destroy us. I picked up my phone. It exposed us. She slowly shook her head. I don't understand. I do. I looked into her tear-filled eyes. This photograph only showed what had already been happening. She stayed silent. The late-night messages. The flirting. The attention. The laughter. The little moments you told yourself didn't matter. Her shoulders dropped. They all led here. Daniel quietly closed another box. The sound echoed through the apartment. Chloe whispered, I never wanted to lose you. I smiled sadly. Neither did I. She reached toward me one last time. I didn't move. For years I believed love could survive almost anything. That morning I finally understood something much harder. Love can survive mistakes. Respect can survive arguments. But trust dies long before someone finally notices the body. And once it does, there is no photograph powerful enough to bring it back. 3 weeks passed after Chloe moved out. The apartment felt quieter than I expected. At first, every empty corner reminded me of her. Then, little by little, the silence became peaceful instead of painful. One Monday morning, Michael called me into his office. He looked up from several blueprints spread across his desk. Ethan. Morning. Sit down. I pulled out a chair. He studied me for a moment. You look tired. I've been better. I know. He slid a thick folder toward me. That's exactly why I'm giving you this. I opened it. The Riverside Redevelopment Project? Michael nodded. It's the biggest contract our company has won in years. I looked surprised. You want me to lead it? I trust you. I hesitated. I'm not sure I'm ready. He smiled. That's why you are. I laughed quietly for the first time in weeks. Michael noticed. There it is. What? A smile. I guess I forgot how. You'll remember. Later that afternoon, I attended the project's first planning meeting. Several architects were already inside the conference room. Michael introduced everyone one by one. Then he stopped beside a woman studying the building models. Ethan. She looked up. This is Scarlett Hayes. She smiled politely. Nice to meet you. You too. Michael continued. Scarlett owns one of the best design firms in the city. She laughed. He's exaggerating. No. Michael folded his arms. I'm not. Scarlett looked back at me. I've seen your work. You have. Several projects. I liked your restoration designs. I blinked. Thank you. She shrugged naturally. They were good. There was no flirting. No games. Just honesty. The meeting lasted nearly 3 hours. Every time I suggested an idea, Scarlett listened carefully. She asked questions. She improved my plans. She never tried to prove she was smarter. When the meeting finally ended, Emma caught up with me outside. So what? What do you think of Scarlett? She seems talented. Emma laughed. That's all. I've known her for 3 hours. She smiled knowingly. Exactly. What does that mean? She respects people. I frowned. So, you've spent years confusing attention with respect. Her words stayed with me. Meanwhile, Chloe's life moved in a very different direction. Daniel called me one evening. You won't believe what I saw. What? Ryan and Chloe. I stayed quiet. They're officially together. Good for them. You really mean that? I hope they find what they wanted. Daniel sighed. I still don't understand you. I don't either. Several days later, Sophia unexpectedly called. Ethan. Hi. I wanted to tell you something. What happened? It's Chloe. I listened quietly. She isn't happy. I didn't answer. Sophia continued. Ryan is different now. In what way? He flirts with everyone. I looked out my office window. Maybe she misunderstood him. I don't think so. A week later, Daniel met me for lunch. He sat across from me with a strange expression. You know Ryan? I remember him. He got caught. Doing what? Flirting with another woman. I took another bite of my sandwich. That's unfortunate. Chloe confronted him. And Daniel shook his head. You won't believe his answer. What did he say? He told her they were never exclusive. I looked at him. Seriously? Daniel nodded. She reminded him she ended a 5-year relationship because of him. I already knew how that conversation would end. Still, I asked, what did Ryan say? Daniel sighed. He looked her straight in the eyes. And he said, Daniel paused. That was your choice, not mine. Silence settled between us. I looked down at my coffee. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. Do you feel sorry for her? I answered honestly. Yes. You do? I never wanted her life to fall apart. You just wanted peace. Exactly. The next morning, Scarlett found me studying project drawings alone. You came in early. So did you. She smiled. I couldn't stop thinking about yesterday's design. She placed another sketch beside mine. What do you think? I studied it carefully. It's better. You really think so? I do. She smiled with quiet satisfaction. Good. There was something refreshing about working with her. She never needed constant praise. She simply cared about doing good work. As we walked through the unfinished construction site later that afternoon, she looked at me. You've changed. I laughed softly. You've only known me a few weeks. I know. But when we first met, she searched for the right words. You look like someone waiting for life to happen again. And now, you look like someone building it. I stopped walking. No one had ever described me that way. She smiled. Come on. We still have a lot to finish. I followed beside her. For the first time since my breakup, I realized something important. Chloe had chased excitement. Ryan had enjoyed the attention. Neither of them expected real responsibility to arrive. But responsibility always comes. Excitement fades. Attention disappears. Reality stays. And reality was quietly teaching Chloe the lesson she refused to believe when I tried to love her. For months passed before Chloe and I saw each other again. By then, my life looked completely different. The Riverside redevelopment project was ahead of schedule. Michael trusted me with decisions that once would have terrified me. Scarlett had become more than a colleague. She had become someone I genuinely enjoyed seeing every morning. She never demanded my attention. She never played games. She simply showed up. One Tuesday afternoon, my assistant knocked on my office door. "Ethan, come in. Someone wants to see you." "Who?" She hesitated. "Chloe." I looked toward the window. After a few seconds, I answered. "Let her in." Chloe stepped inside slowly. She looked thinner. The confidence she once carried so easily had disappeared. "Hi." "Hello." She stood awkwardly near the door. "You've changed." "So have you." She smiled sadly. "I guess we both have." I pointed toward the chair. "You can sit." "Thank you." For a few moments, neither of us spoke. Finally, she took a deep breath. "Ryan and I broke up." "I'm sorry." She looked surprised. "You mean that?" "I don't enjoy seeing people suffer." She lowered her eyes. "He never loved me." I stayed quiet. "He admitted everything." "What did he say?" She laughed bitterly. "He said stealing another man's girlfriend was exciting." Silence filled the office. "But once I was single." She shook her head. "I wasn't interesting anymore." I looked at her calmly. "I'm sorry you went through that." Tears filled her eyes. "I deserved it." I didn't answer. She continued. "I kept asking myself the same question." "What question?" She looked directly at me. "Why did one text message change everything?" I already knew the answer. "It didn't." She frowned. "What?" "My text didn't end our relationship." It felt like it did. I slowly shook my head. "No." I leaned forward. "You ended it at the party." She stared at me. "I only sent a message after it was already over." Her eyes filled with tears. "I understand that now." "No." I spoke gently. "I don't think you did." She looked confused. "You believe the message changed me, didn't it?" "No." I looked out the window. "The message only told you I had finally accepted what you had already done." She covered her face. "I wish I could go back." "I know. I'd leave the party." "I know. I'd never accept that drink." "I know. I'd walk straight home." I smiled sadly. "But life doesn't work that way." She nodded without speaking. A quiet knock interrupted us. Scarlett stepped inside carrying several project folders. She immediately noticed Chloe. "I'm sorry." She started backing toward the door. "I can come later." "It's okay." Chloe stood up. "I was leaving." Scarlett looked at me. "You sure?" I nodded. "We're finished." Chloe picked up her purse. Before leaving, she looked at Scarlett. "I owe you an apology." Scarlett blinked. "For what?" "I thought you stole him." Scarlett smiled gently. "No. I know." Chloe wiped another tear away. "I lost him before you ever met." Scarlett didn't answer. She simply nodded kindly. After Chloe left, Scarlett quietly placed the folders on my desk. "You okay?" "I think so." "You handled that well." "I don't know." She looked at me thoughtfully. "Can I say something?" "Always." "Forgiveness and reconciliation aren't the same thing." I smiled. "I know. You can forgive someone." She paused. "Without inviting them back into your life." Her words settled deep inside me. Later that evening, Sophia called. "I heard Chloe visited you." "She told you?" "Yes." I leaned back in my chair. She looked broken. Sophia sighed. "She finally understands." "What?" "Do you remember the night of the party?" "I'll never forget it." "I asked her something yesterday." "What?" "I asked why she slapped Ryan." I stayed silent. Sophia continued. "She said she didn't slap him because he kissed her." I frowned. "Then why?" "Because your text arrived." I closed my eyes. Sophia's voice softened. The moment she read it, she realized she had destroyed the safest relationship she'd ever have. Neither of us spoke. After a long silence, Sophia whispered, "I wish she had understood sooner." "So do I." When the call ended, I remained alone in my office. The city lights slowly appeared beyond the windows. Scarlett quietly walked back inside. I forgot my notebook. She noticed I was still sitting there. "Still thinking?" "A little." She smiled gently. "Come on." "Where?" "Dinner." "I have work." She folded her arms. "You've done enough for today." I laughed. "You sound like Michael." "I'll take that as a compliment." As we walked out together, I realized something important. Regret is powerful. Sometimes it changes people completely. But regret cannot erase choices. It cannot unsend messages. It cannot undo kisses. Some moments quietly divide your life into before and after. No matter how sincerely someone apologizes, The line between those two lives never disappears. Almost a year passed before Chloe called again. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. Hello, Ethan. Her voice sounded softer than I remembered. Can we meet? I stayed quiet. Please. What for? One last conversation. I looked through the window of my office. Where? The rooftop restaurant. I smiled sadly. Our anniversary place. Yes. I'll be there. That evening I arrived just before sunset. The city stretched beneath us exactly as it had every year we celebrated another anniversary. Only this time there were no flowers, no gifts, no promises. Chloe was already waiting. She stood when she saw me. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't. I know. We sat across from each other. Neither of us touched the menus. The silence felt familiar. Finally she spoke. I've wanted to ask you something. I'm listening. She looked directly into my eyes. Why didn't you fight for me? I looked at the skyline before answering. I did. She frowned. No. Yes. You let me leave. I slowly shook my head. I fought for us long before the party. She stayed quiet. I continued. Every overtime shift. She listened carefully. Every plan I made for our future. Another pause. Every promise I kept. She lowered her eyes. I trusted you every single day. A tear rolled down her cheek. I know. That was my fight. She whispered. I didn't see it. I know. I thought love meant refusing to let me go. I smiled sadly. Love also means showing up before things fall apart. She covered her face. I was selfish. You were. I wanted excitement. I know. I wanted attention. I know. But I still loved you. I nodded slowly. I believe you. Hope appeared on her face. You do? Yes. She reached across the table. Then why didn't you stop me? I looked at her hand. I didn't take it. Because I refused to compete. Her expression changed. Compete. I wasn't going to stand beside another man asking you to choose. She closed her eyes. You should have. No. Why? Because by then. I took a slow breath. You had already chosen. The wind moved quietly across the rooftop. Neither of us spoke. A few minutes later, another familiar voice interrupted us. I hoped I'd find you here. We both turned. Sophia walked toward our table. She looked at me first. Ethan. Hi. Then she looked at Chloe. You finally asked him. Chloe nodded. I did. Sophia sighed. I've been waiting for this conversation. She sat beside her sister. I need to say something. Chloe looked nervous. You warned me. I did. Sophia folded her hands. I warned you over and over. I remember. I told you attention from strangers isn't worth risking someone who truly loves you. Chloe whispered. You did. I told you compliments disappear. Another nod. You did. I told you excitement fades. More tears rolled down Chloe's face. I remember. Sophia looked directly at her. But loyalty, she paused, is much harder to find. The table became silent. Finally, Sophia stood. I've said everything I needed to. She squeezed Chloe's shoulder gently. Then she looked at me. I'm happy you're doing well. Thank you. After she left, Chloe stared at the empty chair. I wish I'd listened. So do I. She looked back at me. I owe you a real apology. You don't have to. I do. She straightened in her seat. I betrayed your trust. I stayed quiet. I blamed work. I blamed loneliness. I blamed alcohol. She shook her head. But the truth. She took a deep breath. Is that I made the choice. I nodded. Thank you for saying it. She wiped away another tear. I don't expect you to come back. I looked surprised. You don't. No. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I believe you. She smiled sadly. Can I ask one last question? Go ahead. Do you still love me? I answered honestly. Part of me always will. She closed her eyes. I knew it. But that's not enough. She nodded before I finished. I know. I continued. Love can survive distance. She listened quietly. It can survive arguments. Another pause. It can even survive mistakes. She whispered. But not this. I slowly shook my head. Not once trust chooses someone else. The sunset painted the city orange and gold. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she smiled through her tears. I hope someone loves you the way you deserved. I smiled back. I think someone already does. She understood immediately. Scarlett. I nodded. I'm happy for you. I hope you're happy someday too. She stood. So this is goodbye. I think it is. She hesitated for 1 second. Then she hugged me gently. Not like two people beginning again. like two people finally accepting that the story they shared had already reached its ending. When we stepped apart, I felt sadness, but I didn't feel regret. I had already fought for our relationship long before it needed saving. This time, walking away wasn't surrender. It was finally choosing not to lose myself while trying to save someone who had already stopped choosing me. 2 years passed faster than I ever imagined. The Riverside redevelopment project stood finished before me, shining beneath the morning sun. People filled the entrance. Reporters adjusted cameras. City officials greeted guests. I stood quietly beside Scarlett. She smiled at the completed building. We actually did it. I looked at her. We did. She laughed. I still remember our first meeting. You corrected half my ideas. They needed improving. I know. She nudged my shoulder playfully. And you admitted it. I've become smarter. She smiled. I noticed. Michael walked toward us. There are my two favorite architects. Scarlett laughed. You say that every week. Because it's true. He handed each of us a program. The ceremony starts in 15 minutes. We'll be there. He nodded proudly before greeting other guests. I watched him disappear into the crowd. Scarlett quietly slipped her hand into mine. Nervous. A little. About the speeches? I shook my head. No. What then? Looking back. She squeezed my hand gently. You don't have to. I know. But today reminds me of everything. Before she could answer, another familiar voice interrupted us. Ethan. I turned around. Chloe stood a few steps away. She looked different. Calmer. More confident. Not because life had become easier. Because she had finally accepted it. Hi. Hello. Scarlett smiled politely. Good morning. Chloe returned the smile. Morning. For a few moments, none of us spoke. Then Chloe looked at Scarlett. Can I tell you something? Of course. She took a slow breath. Thank you. Scarlett looked surprised. For what? For loving him without trying to change him. Scarlett glanced at me before answering. I never thought he needed changing. Chloe smiled sadly. I know. I understand that now. She looked toward the completed building. I spent years believing love had to be exciting every single day. Scarlett listened quietly. But peace. Chloe smiled. Isn't boring. She looked back at me. It's precious. I nodded. I'm glad you found that out. She laughed softly. It took me longer than it should have. Scarlett answered gently. Sometimes the hardest lessons become the most important. Chloe looked relieved. I'm happy for both of you. I mean that. I know. She gave us one final smile before walking toward the other guests. Scarlett watched her leave. She seems different. She is. So are you. I laughed. I hope so. The ceremony began. One speaker followed another. They talked about architecture, investment, community, the future. Eventually, Michael invited Scarlett and me onto the stage. The applause echoed across the plaza. As I looked over the crowd, my eyes briefly found Chloe. She smiled. Not with regret. Not with hope. Simply with acceptance. For the first time, I smiled back without sadness. After the speeches ended, Scarlett and I walked through the completed building together. Sunlight poured through the tall glass windows. Families explored every floor. Children laughed near the indoor garden. Scarlett looked around proudly. This place feels alive. It does. She stopped beside one of the windows. What are you thinking? I smiled. About one text message. She looked curious. The one you sent. I nodded. You don't have to explain. She repeated the words quietly. I used to think those words ruined my life. And now, I looked across the city. They saved it. Scarlett stayed silent, letting me continue. If I hadn't sent that message, I laughed softly. I'd probably still be chasing someone who had already stopped choosing me. She reached for my hand again. You deserved better. I know that now. You always deserved better. I looked at her. Thank you. For what? For proving love doesn't have to hurt before it becomes real. She smiled warmly. It shouldn't. We continued walking through the building. Every hallway reminded me of how far I had come. Not just in my career. In my life. Years ago, I believed winning meant convincing Chloe to love me again. Now I understood something much bigger. Real victory had nothing to do with making someone regret losing me. It had everything to do with becoming someone who no longer needed that regret. Scarlett stopped beside the rooftop garden. The wind gently moved her hair. She looked at me. Ready? For what? The rest of our future. I smiled. More than ever. Together we walked toward the exit. I thought about the frightened man who had stared at a single photograph. believing everything precious had just disappeared. He couldn't imagine this day. He couldn't imagine peace. He couldn't imagine loving someone without fear. Most of all, he couldn't imagine thanking the moment that broke his heart. Yet standing there beside Scarlett, I finally understood the truth. The best reply I ever sent was only one sentence. The best reply I ever gave afterward was quietly walking away and never looking back.